YouTube, what's up? If you're a fan of grunge poster design, stick around for this video. I'm going to show you all the little tricks and tips I've taken in this Lost in the Woods poster. Let's jump straight in. Okay, so getting started here, this is the original final piece. So I'm going to be using this as a reference just to come back to and point out some individual effects. So to start with, let's just create the new canvas. So if I come up to File, New, come on Custom here. These are the settings I'm going to be using. Just copy these values. Now this is the standard canvas size I use for all of my Instagram posts. And our first step is just I'm going to bring in this image. It's perfect for this because of this looking up angle. Yep, just going to make sure that that is centered using the align tools up the top here. If these are grayed out for you, make sure to click on the three dots and select align to canvas, and then you should be able to use them. Okay, now to achieve this orange and black color, I'm just going to use a simple duotone gradient map. So if I come down to adjustments here and select gradient map, I'm going to make sure this gradient icon is selected. Now this is because if you wanted to eyedrop a color on this image, it would only select white because you're selected on the mask. So make sure that this gradient icon is selected. Come onto the gradient bar. Now here I have a preset saved of what I've used previously. You can see the two colors here. It's just a dark gray near black and a quite vibrant orange. So now what I've done is I've dragged these two in towards each other just to increase the contrast. And now I'm going to select OK and reverse it. Now this is going to make the trees the orange color and the sky black. Just give it this kind of ominous look. And I'm just going to adjust these sliders and select OK here. Next step is I'm going to add in this Lost in the Woods text here. You can see that there's a few effects on these, but I will run through these towards the end. Simply to start with, I'm just going to type them out. Now I'm going to make this a off-white color, just slightly into the orange range, and select OK here, and then choose my typeface. I'm using Helvetica now. Then I'm just going to decrease the leading here, bring these words together, and then put the track in at minus 60. I'm going to do. And yeah, choose Command T and hold Option to increase this. It's going to make this the right size, and then simply just use the center align, and there we go. There is the base text. Okay, I'm just going to move on to this subtitle text now. This not every path leads you home. So now I'm using the same typeface, just I'm not using it in all caps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type out each word individually and just drag them in. I'm going to try and get the leading to be similar on each line, so that they are all closely knit. Now, this is simply just a trial and error. You can play around with them, move them where you like. And now for each word, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Command J to duplicate it so that they're all formatted the same, and then just retype. Now, this one I believe is in here. Just going to shift them all up a bit here. Move this Y over to the left. And there we go. They've all been shifted now. I'm going to select all of the layers, group them, then I'm going to duplicate it and turn it into a smart object. See, the reason I do this and create a copy is just so that if I make any errors on this one, I've got a text layer I can go back to and just restart. So I'm now just going to hide this original text layer, and then I can resize this as I please. So same thing here. I'm just going to use the center justifier at the top here, and I'll just bring that down. You can see in the original, it's this nice yellow color. So I'm just going to find another similar color here. So I'm just going to come down to effects and color overlay. And I'm just going to come in between yellow and orange here. And I'm just going to add a little bit more yellow into that. There we go. About that's good. And then select OK. You can see on this original that there is these kind of green branches passing through it. Now this is simply just a layer mode. So if I just set this to exclusion, I believe. Okay, so I've set this to exclusion here, but you're not seeing it. The reason is because I have an overlay selected. So now I've got the color overlay. I need to reconvert this into another smart object, and now the layer modes will apply. So there you go, set that to exclusion. And now you can see the green branches. It's kind of inverting the color behind it. It's a nice effect. Okay, just shifting back over to the original now. Around these text edges, you can see this kind of texture. Now this is a similar technique I use in a lot of my sort of grunge work. It's just a simple displacement map using a texture file. So I'm just going to recreate this here. Now I'm going to do this on the text before I do it on the whole image, just because I don't want the image to be distorted. So I'm going to do the Lost in the Woods text first. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this. Similar to what I mentioned earlier, I'm just going to create a copy so that I have a backup. Then I'm going to convert this to a smart object, then come up to filter, distort, and displace. The higher the scale, the stronger the effect's going to be. So I'm going to do maybe 50 horizontal and 50 vertical. I normally match the horizontal and vertical. So I'm going to select this film dust texture here. I'm going to link this below in the description, so if you want to grab this texture, come for it. And then I'm going to open it here. And you can see it creates this really lovely grunge effect. It's almost like splatted. The text is a bit diffused, it's kind of leaking off the edges here. It's really kind of, it creates an analog effect. It's really nice. And then what I'm going to do is use the align tools, bring that back in, and just shimmy it up a bit. Now I'm just going to repeat the same step on the subtitle text. The only reason I'm not doing this as one layer is because this is using a layer mode, and if we were to combine them, then it would stop it. So I'm just going to select this, come up to filter, and then you can see displace is already here. It's just going to copy the previous settings. Because it's smaller text, I'm going to bring it down a little bit. Select the same layer, press open. And there we go. Same effect is applied here. Okay, just looking back at this original now, we've got the text completed and the diffusion effects on it. You can see that the color and the background are all sorted. Now, the only thing left to do is the texturing and this silhouette image here. So you can see this kind of faint silhouette in the center that's kind of creating contrast on the text. It's a good, center align, just similar to the text here. So now what I'm going to do is just recreate this. So this is simply just an image I found on Unsplash. I'm going to use the align tools to center that. And now I can just play around with layer modes so that it can create contrast over this text. So what I'm going to do is drag this under the gradient map. And I'm going to set the layer mode to difference. So you can see as I scroll through, there's a lot of range of effects that you can create with this. So it's a lot of trial and error you can go through. But I'm going to set this on difference. And then you can see it creates quite a harsh contrast with this orange. So what I'm going to do is isolate just the silhouette by using select and subject. And then I'm going to mask that down here. Now, this is completely gone, but what I need to do is invert the mask by using Command I. And you can see now, all I need to do is reduce the opacity and it will create it as more of a faint outline. Then yeah, you can just play around with this opacity slider to get it to the point you want it. I'm going to say about there is good. Right, now moving on to this kind of distortion chop here that I've done. You can see the text is kind of jagged off to one side. So what I'm going to do to recreate this is I'm going to combine all layers into a new one by using Command, Option, Shift and E. Now yeah, this is going to combine all visible layers into one individual so that you can create effects and it will apply to everything. Now with this layer selected, I'm going to come up to this polygon lasso. If you can't see it, just hold this down with left click, select it here. And now I'm just going to create cuts in these triangle shapes. Double click just to pin it back to the original point. And then here I'm going to use Command J to duplicate this selection. And then you can just use the arrow keys to shift it. Now if you want to, you can just select it and drag. If you want to make more subtle edits, just use the arrow keys. But here, I'm just going to play around with the placement of this. Now you want it far enough away that you can see the distortion, but you don't want it too far to the point where you can't read it. And then when I want to create another cut, come back to this layer, make sure that that's selected, create another cut here. Again, Command J, select this, drag this around. I'm just going to make one more cut into this subtitle text from above. So again, same tool, Command J, and shift it around. Right, now, all that is left on this design is just to create some textures now. So I'm just going to paste in this texture layer. I've got this from Design Syndrome from Instagram. He sells this pack on his website. It's a great pack. He's got quite a few paper cut textures. I'm just going to drop the opacity down here to about 80%. And that is the only texture I use. It's really, it's got quite a lot of depth to it. So it's just the only one that I need to use here. And that is the final piece done. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I do really appreciate it. And I hope I could be of help to you. For now, subscribe. I've got more content on the way and I'll see you very soon.